Last week, we talked about how changes might be coming to the Magic Key program and the Disneyland reservation system. Based on news that Disney had planned to start enforcing the reservation no-show policy and a survey sent to Magic Key holders, we predicted that Disney was thinking about or planning to increase the number of reservations that a Magic Key holder could hold at a single time. And today we've got some observations that further lead us to believe that Disney is changing their attitude, changing their mind about how they feel about Magic Key holders, especially with respect to the relationship between them and single-day or multi-day ticket holders. They may be realizing just how important Magic Key holders, annual pass holders, are financially to Disney's bottom line. Now let's take it back a few more weeks. I believe we also talked about this. That's the reservation calendar for single-day tickets, and it didn't look great. Lots of sold-out dates where there weren't very many before. Meanwhile, the calendar for Magic Keys looked quite a lot better. A situation that I don't think I have ever seen before since they started selling Magic Keys back in August. And that trend is still happening now. Here's the calendar as of this recording. March is almost completely booked, along with that first week of April. The Magic Key calendar looks quite a bit better, with just the weekends being the only real problem. But that's always been the case, really. Actually, let's go back to that calendar from March 6th. The 2 weeks we observed were from the 13th through the 25th, and those were almost completely booked. And it doesn't look like they were ever replenished because that same week ending the 26th is still booked. While we again see that the week after that and the week after that are booked. Again, this is the single-day ticket calendar, not the Magic Key calendar, not the Dream Key calendar or any other one. Single-day tickets or multi-day tickets, and there is almost a complete month have been fully booked. Now, one of the possible reasons suggested for this anomaly was spring break, that this period that we're going through right now is a popular spring break period, end of March and early April. Perfectly viable scenario, yes. The spring season is a great time for out-of-town guests to come visit Disneyland, except that we didn't see this same scenario play out during the fall, during the Halloween season, or during the winter, during the Christmas season. The complete opposite. The single-day calendar was completely wide open. The reservation calendar was a total wasteland of reservations. Dream Keys were losing their minds. Magic Keys were losing their minds because they couldn't make a reservation during this period. Wide open for single-day tickets. But today, during the spring, the situation is almost a complete reversal. Why is that? Well, we think that Disney may be realizing that single-day ticket holders are not showing up the way that they expected them to. It's been apparent for quite a while that Disney is trying to turn Disneyland into sort of Walt Disney World West. They love how Disney World guests go to the park. They love how they spend money. They love how they buy food at Disneyland. They can't stop talking about the per guest expenditure, at Walt Disney World. That's something they mention often, or used to mention often, in their quarterly earnings reports. But anybody who's paying attention knows that's just not how things operate in Southern California. Sure, we do get out-of-town guests. We get people from, Arizona, Nevada, from all over, really. But it's just not the same captive market here in California. Even when you talk about out-of-state guests, you don't have the same captive market here in California than you do in Florida. The Walt Disney World Resort is a virtual island. And I'm talking about the whole resort, all the parks, all the hotels. They have those guests, they have their focused attention. By the way, I will, though, take this opportunity here to observe that even that is changing at Walt Disney World. Every day we hear more and more from guests that are saying, don't stay on property, don't stay on the resort, stay off property. It's just too expensive. The room rates are astronomical, and you're not getting the level of service that is commensurate with a $400 or $500 a night visit at a hotel on property. So they're choosing to save a little money and stay off property. And once you lose that focused attention, it becomes harder to get guests to eat on property. It gets harder to get guests to shop on property. And it gets harder to keep them from going to Universal Studios. Once they're staying off property, it's more likely that they're going to do things off property, i.e. Universal. Meanwhile, you've got Disney offering discounts for on-property stays here at Disneyland. They want you staying on property at Disneyland as much as possible, but I will say that it is considerably easier and more convenient for guests to stay off property here at Disneyland in California than it is in Walt Disney World. But if Disney were to get more guests if they were able to encourage them to stay on property more here at Disneyland, that would obviously make it much easier for them to, again, get them to shop and eat on property as well. But again, the core guest here at Disneyland isn't the out-of-town guest. The core guest here is the local guest. And Disney may be realizing that more attention needs to be paid to Magic Key holders. Give them more incentive to come to the park more often. Give them more incentive possibly to start buying Genie Plus. Let's take a look actually at some wait times and return times for Lightning Lane. These were taken around 1 p.m. on Monday. Got an hour for Autopia, hour for Buzz Lightyear. Indiana Jones, almost 3 hours. Matterhorn is 2 hours. Millennium Falcon, just over 2 hours. Space is almost 3 hours. Rise of the Resistance is sold out. Let's take a look at DCA. Goofy Sky School, 90 minutes. Guardians is 4.5 hours. Incredicoaster, 2 hours. Radiator Springs is an outlier here where it's not sold out and people are seemingly willing to wait and stand by. Then you've got Soarin' at 90 minutes. Same for Midway Mania, with Web Slingers still available and not a long wait. Before we get into our key observation here, I do want to say what I've seen here as far as these wait times go and the return times is that it does look like guests are more willing to purchase Genie Plus than they had been previously, but they're less willing to also buy Rise of the Resistance, Web Slingers, or Radiator Springs. They're less inclined to do that. They're just spending the $20 for Genie Plus, and they're just going to wait and stand by for the others. But the main observation that I want to make here, from my own personal viewpoint, what I've experienced in the parks, is that 1 p.m. is pretty early to see wait times, return times get pushed out that far ahead, 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours ahead. You see this all the time at Disney World. We haven't seen this very often at Disneyland. By the way, we're seeing the same thing again today. I checked the board again today. We're seeing more of the same, this time before even noon, at 11:45, I think it was, that we were seeing similar return times, similar standby waits. In most cases, as I observed this, in most cases, the standby wait time was pretty typical. That hasn't changed. Return times have gone up a little bit, but the standby wait times are still about where they are historically. Pretty close. This means, in my opinion, one of two things. Either they're issuing fewer Lightning Lane reservations, thus pushing out more quickly the return times for those Lightning Lanes, or they're changing the bell curve in terms of when they're releasing reservations. That is to say, very few reservations are being released to Genie Plus in the early morning hours, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., let's say. Then releasing more reservations in the late morning or early afternoon when the park starts to reach its peak capacity. Not its full capacity, but its peak attendance levels. In either case, one thing that we can say for sure is that Disney is finessing the Genie Plus system, in my opinion, to make it more palatable for Magic Key holders to opt in. Because a Magic Key holder, they don't spend 12 or 16 hours in the park. They spend 5 or 6 hours in the park. And if Disney wants or needs them to opt in to Genie Plus, then they need to make it palatable. They need to see return times palatable to a Magic Key holder in order for them to opt in, to buy the Genie Plus program. For example, if they get to the park and they see that Space Mountain is already a 4-hour wait, they're just going to say no. That's it. They're already out. They're going to find something else to do. They're going to take the path of least resistance. They'll do something else. But if you make it possible for a Magic Key holder to get a soon return time for Space Mountain or one of the other bigger ones, maybe 2 hours, then it's more likely that they might opt in. Not necessarily every trip, but more often, let's say. Maybe someday they really do want to ride on one of those trips to the park. Maybe one of those days they do want to go on Space Mountain. Because you can't avoid Space Mountain as a annual pass holder. I can speak to this. You can't avoid Space Mountain or Indiana Jones forever. You can for a few trips, 4, 5, 6 trips, but at some point you're going to want to ride. This is something that I'm beginning to see more often, and I'm hearing it from other people who watch the data closely, and they're seeing similar things. It's going to require more observation. I'm going to be watching this. I want to see if my prediction would be, if I'm correct, is that we're going to see return times flatline for these big attractions in the late afternoon, early evenings. You won't see, unless something really terrible happens, like like when a ride shuts down or something like that. But you won't see those 5 or 6 hour return times on Genie Plus at all. You won't see them at all. So that's what I'm seeing right now. Disney is doing little things here and there to try to get more attention focused on annual pass holders. The reservation system, making it more available to them. They're still having a hard time with the weekends, but making more reservations available to Magic Key holders and making Genie Plus look more favorable, give them a better reason to opt into that. They don't have to do it every trip, maybe once out of 5 or something like that. But I think that they are trying to do that. I think they realize maybe that they're missing out. You know what? I'll end with this little story. This is something that happened just yesterday. Last night, Liz and I had plans to go to Disneyland for her birthday. Those plans evolved into a gathering. We had a bunch of friends come in, and they wanted to hang out with us. And our initial plan was for all of us to get together and go to the park. We were going to go to Food and Wine, go to DCA, spend 5 or 6 hours in the park, eat a bunch of food, get a bunch of drinks, see some shows, spend all that time at DCA and hang out with our friends. Except only half of our group had reservations. So instead of me and Liz going into the park, we decided not to go into the park. None of us went into the park, and we found other things to do. We ate, we drank, we bowled for 6 hours. Hardly any of that money that we spent, and it was a considerable amount. We did a lot of eating and a lot of drinking and a lot of bowling. And in that time, very little of that wound up at Disney. Almost all of it wound up in third-party places other than Disney. And I'm not even talking about Disney, downtown Disney. Well, some of it did go there, but we just completely went off the map. And that all happened because we didn't get reservations. We couldn't get a reservation. Disney had us. We were there. We were ready, ripe for Disney to take us and take our money. They had us, and they lost us because of the reservation system. And this isn't exactly an epiphany. I'm not saying this because this single event happened last night, but it is indicative of things that I've been observing now for a little while since the Magic Keys became available, since the reservation system became such an issue. The longer the reservation system stays in place, the more Disney is burning out, I think, the local guest, the local fan, the frequent visitor at Disneyland. And to take this back to our original observation, it does seem like Disney might be we're not seeing any evidence of that in the park yet, per se. People are still having plenty of things to talk about and complain about when it comes to the reservation system. But I do think that they're now starting to figure out a way, or trying to think of ways they need to right that ship in the next couple of months, because renewals are going to come upon them pretty quickly, because they need to figure this out, I would say, at least a couple of months before the renewals start in August. Otherwise, that big talk that Chapek had about what a great quarter they had due to the annual passes coming back and Genie Plus, this and that, they're going to have a significant year-over-year loss if they aren't able to right this ship, because they're not going to get the same numbers, they're not going to get 100% renewals on those Magic Keys come August. And I should reiterate, what we're reporting here is not a simple distaste for the reservation system. What we're reporting is that the reservation system is costing Disney revenue, and Disney is starting to realize that. The reservation system might be saving them revenue elsewhere, i.e., keeping staff to a minimum, keeping, inventory levels at their peak number or whatever. Makes perfect sense, but it's costing them revenue elsewhere. Is the reservation system still a net win for Disney? Or is Disney seeing the cost of this system outweighing the benefits, both in terms of actual income earned and the cost that it's having in terms of the goodwill between Disney and its guests? Because that's kind of eroding. You can't escape it. Social media is all over it. You can't escape it. Heck, Disney CFO Christine McCarthy even said herself that happy guests spend more money in the parks. And when you talk about the guests at Disneyland, they are, again, predominantly locals. So you have to know that they've got our feelings, locals, our feelings and our levels of engagement, our levels of happiness on their minds. And with that, that's it for today. We're going to be keeping an eye on this story and keeping an eye on any changes that we might notice to the Magic Key system and to the reservation system. Otherwise, follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. And there's also our website, freshbakedisney.com. If you like our show, want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you very much. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And fresh baked.